that. I think we've topped it today, right? And I know I'm biased, but you top the Secretary of the Air Force by having the Secretary of the Navy. I mean, come on, right? Who we're going to hear from in a moment. I'm so excited about this event and what it means and what comes out of it, the conversations, the networking, the relationships, the ideas. I could tell you many stories of over the last 4 years about connections that have come out of this room that have led to more investment and opportunities for Indiana, and that's what this event is all about, and I'm very proud of it. I'm honored to introduce one of our special guests at the Northeast Indiana Defense Summit, a man who's been entrusted with a big and giant task by the President of the United States, and someone else who has become a really good friend of mine. I'm really proud of what I get to do on the Armed Services Committee in confirming President Trump's nominees to all of these important offices at the Pentagon. And I put the confirmation of our Secretary of the Navy right at the top of the list with Secretary Hegseth because of how important of a job and a role that he has. The Honorable John Phelan was sworn in as the 79th Secretary of the Navy on March 25th. As SecNav, Secretary Phelan oversees the well-being, readiness, and development of nearly 1 million sailors, Marines, reservists, and civilian personnel in the Department of the Navy. Prior to his appointment by President Trump, Secretary Phelan was the founder and chairman of Rugger Management, a private investment firm based in Palm Beach, Florida. I appreciate someone who spends much of his life in Palm Beach coming to a chilly Fort Wayne, Indiana, so we appreciate you making that sacrifice for us. Before launching Rugger, he was a co-founder and co-managing partner of MSD Capital, a private investment firm. He is a committed patriot and philanthropist. Secretary Phelan served as chairman of the board of trustees of the Third Option Foundation, the Spirit of America, and as a member of the Business Executives for National Security. I can't imagine what an honor of his lifetime it is to go from being so successful in business now to serve his country in this very important role as Secretary of the Navy for the greatest president of my lifetime. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Secretary of the Navy, John Phelan, to the stage. We're very honored to have you in Fort Wayne.
She tried to pretend he wasn't drinking again, but Daddy left the proof on her cheek. I was only 8 years old that summer.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for the kind introduction, Senator Banks, and for putting this wonderful forum together. Secretary Hegseth, thank you for your leadership, and Governor Braun, thank you for hosting us here in the Hoosier State, and Congressman Stutzman, thank you as well. To state and local leaders, service members, veterans, industry and business partners, thank you for being here. It's good to be in Indiana, home to Naval Surface Warfare Center Crane, one of the Navy's most important engine rooms, as we like to call it. And I'm okay with the cold, even though I'm from Florida and grew up there. It's good to get back to the cold every once in a while. It kind of thickens your blood. So this state pairs a deep bench of skilled trades and engineers with a central logistics hub, turning precision machining and process reliability into competitive advantage. America's Navy doesn't start at sea. It starts here, where you make things and where capacity, speed, and repeatable quality convert requirements into deterrence. But for this relationship to work at the speed the current environment demands, we have to be clear about what we are trying to do. The Navy cannot afford to be isolated from its suppliers who keep the fleet moving. We have to communicate our needs, our timelines, our strategic direction of travel with precision and clarity. Industry should not have to guess what problems we are trying to solve, nor should they be mired in the valley of procurement death that occurs in the Pentagon. So let me say this plainly. The United States Navy is open for business. We are signaling demand, publishing requirements earlier, compressing decision cycles, and breaking down the barriers that have kept good ideas and capable suppliers on the sidelines. If you can help us deliver warfighting advantages, capacity, speed, resiliency, we want you at the table. We are rebuilding the fleet because the threat environment demands it. We are living through one of the most dangerous strategic environments in modern history. Warfare is being reshaped in real time by drones, AI, autonomy, machine learning, and rapid iteration. A time where warfighters, coders, and manufacturers adapt capabilities mid-fight and in some cases mid-day to change the enemy's calculus. The ability to adapt and iterate is no longer a competitive edge. It's a key determinant of victory. We face a world characterized by China's unprecedented military buildup and the direct threat it poses to the United States and our allies. A more vulnerable homeland after years of unsecured borders and increasingly capable air and missile threats, and the persistent dangers of Russia, Iran, North Korea, transnational cartels, and globally sponsored terrorist organizations. This is a world that demands a combat-credible naval force, ready to fight and ready to win, anytime, anywhere, against any adversary. For 250 years, the Navy Marine Corps team has protected America's interests, delivered sea control and power projection, kept sea lanes open, and ensured our prosperity. This has been a busy year for our Navy Marine Corps team, from Operation Midnight Hammer, when an Ohio-class submarine from hundreds of miles away put multiple Tomahawk missiles precisely on target, degrading Iran's nuclear capability with devastating effect, to the Red Sea, where our ships have stood watch against multiple drone and missile attacks across 380 separate engagements to keep sea lanes open and commerce moving. And recently, in Operations Atlantic and Pacific Watch, the Department of Navy has seized more than 450 metric tons of cocaine worth more than $11 billion. Those seizures aren't just numbers. They are lives saved and communities spared. This is what readiness looks like. Sea lanes open, allies reassured, enemies deterred, and the American people and our way of life protected. In every century and in every conflict, control of the seas has been the decisive factor. Today is no different, and America's sailors and Marines are proving it every day. However, our status as the world's dominant sea power is increasingly being contested, and it is no longer guaranteed. This did not happen overnight. These problems have been building for more than 2 decades. A systemic degradation of our industrial and shipbuilding capacity. Our manufacturing base today is roughly 1/3 the size it was 3 decades ago. Workforce constraints are stretching build schedules. Our shipbuilding enterprise has eroded, hollowing out capacity we must have to deter war. Nearly every ship class in the Navy is behind in construction. 58 of 59 ships are significantly delayed, many by more than 2 years, all with major cost overruns. We face significant surface and submarine maintenance backlogs as well. We have too many single and sole source vendors. Public shipyards in America have fallen from 8 to 4, and private surface shipyards have fallen from 14 to 7. This isn't a temporary setback. This is a readiness problem. It is a systemic problem that has eroded the very capacity we rely on to deter war, and it is one President Trump has correctly identified and we are now addressing. Commercially, the picture is just as stark. The United States produces less than 1% of the world's commercial ships. China's dual-use shipyards hold over 50% of global market share and about 95% of container production. With 44.6% of U.S. international goods trade by value and 78.6% by weight moving over the seas, too much of that commerce is underwriting Beijing's capacity. That is unacceptable. On the workforce side, we've allowed skilled trades to atrophy. In the Cold War, about 35% of Americans worked in manufacturing. Today, it's around 12%. Roughly 70% of our industrial workforce, the pipe fitters, welders, ship fitters, and structural fabricators, will retire in the next decade. To meet demand in new construction and repair across public shipyards alone, just those four, we estimate we'll need 250,000 new skilled workers. I believe for the last decade, we've taught people how to code. For the next decade, I believe teaching people how to use their hands will be the most relevant skill needed in the workplace. For too long, our shipbuilding enterprise has been slowed by red tape, supply chain fragility, and a shrinking workforce. We let efficiency become an excuse for fragility and complexity become an excuse for delay. That era is ending. Under President Trump's leadership and his One Big Beautiful Bill and his executive order on restoring America's maritime dominance, he armed us with the authorities, resources, and urgency to modernize the fleet, expand our shipyards, rebuild the skilled workforce, deepen our magazines, and harden the infrastructure that wins war at sea. That strategy is being shaped by the Secretary of War, who has taken the defense acquisition system that was slow, fragmented, and built for another era and transformed it into the warfighting acquisition system. This new system concentrates authority, aligns incentives to speed, and cuts through the layers that added delay but no value, because acquisition is now recognized as a warfighting function. And speed to capability is the organizing principle for the entire Department of War. Together, these reforms restore the foundations of maritime strength and position us to deliver the fleet our nation needs at the pace the world now demands. Because whoever controls the seas controls the future, and America must always be that nation. We're overhauling shipbuilding from the inside out by modernizing dry docks, streamlining contracts, and insisting on accountability from every tier of the supply chain. We are moving away from cumbersome contracting toward deliberate, predictable procurement so builders can plan, hire, and deliver with confidence. We are also driving convergence between commercial and naval shipbuilding, co-building and co-producing where it makes sense, sharing tools, talents, and timelines. That redundancy and resiliency is essential to a fragile base. So what's changed inside the Department of the Navy? We are taking smarter and better calculated risks. We are learning to iterate in real time. And we are grounding our reforms in the playbook of the innovators who came before us, leaders like Admiral Wayne Meyer and General Victor Krulak. These were men who refused to believe that tomorrow's security could be purchased with yesterday's thinking. Admiral Wayne Meyer looked at the accelerating threat of jets, precision missiles, and electronic warfare, and understood that legacy defenses would not save future ships. He integrated radars, interceptors, and computing power into Aegis and reshaped naval warfare forever. General Victor Krulak, who traveled to Washington in 1939 with detailed evidence of Japanese amphibious craft, found his report buried in a drawer, stamped with a Post-it that said, "The work of some nut in China." His analysis proved prophetic, and his persistence helped drive the creation of the Higgins boat, the workhorse of Allied landings from Guadalcanal to Normandy. Innovation often looks impractical, strange, even foolish, or like the work of some nut in China, right up until the moment it becomes indispensable. These leaders pushed, they iterated in real time, they refused to take no for an answer. Different eras, same lesson. The future belongs to leaders that take risk, move fast, and refuse to accept that's how we've always done it as the final word. It is my goal, my priority, and frankly, my obligation to ensure that yesterday's lessons forge tomorrow's maritime superiority. If I leave anything behind, my hope as Secretary of Navy will be a Navy that is stronger, more capable, and more adaptable than the one I inherited. A Navy that wins anywhere, anytime, 24/7, 365. To make this a reality, over the last several months, we have restructured how we buy, build, and field capability. We established a new group to place smart bets on breakthrough technologies and speed up capabilities, helping us move from operational problems to deployable solutions faster. We also created a new unified unmanned and autonomy group led by a 3-star admiral, a deputy assistant secretary, and a portfolio acquisition executive for robotic and autonomous systems to drive requirements, acquisition, and delivery under one accountable architecture. The mission is simple: accelerate integration of unmanned systems across the fleet and ensure they interoperate seamlessly with manned platforms. My view is simple: human and machine together will outperform human or machine alone. We are organizing the department to capture that advantage. We've also put our weight behind the maritime industrial base, increasing throughput, compressing design timelines, and accelerating maintenance and modernization cycles. This is not a pilot or a study. This is execution, faster contracting decisions, better design and modular build, tighter operator feedback loops, and early industry involvement so production problems are identified early and projects start on schedule and stay on track. Shipbuilding and readiness remain the department's and my top priorities. We are driving shipbuilding initiatives to increase tonnage, strengthen allied production lines, and attack the long-standing choke points that have dragged our enterprise behind the power curve. We're strengthening our shipyards across the country, but also the thousands of suppliers in states like Indiana who make the parts, forge the steel, and design the systems that keep the fleet alive. Every weld, every bolt, every circuit board built here contributes to sailors and Marine safety halfway around the world. Our focus is readiness. Readiness begins with ships that work, crews that are trained, and an industrial base that can sustain both. That's why we're investing in America's manufacturing at every level, from microelectronics to advanced propulsion, from additive manufacturing to new alloys that can withstand the harshest ocean environments. The Navy's modernization effort isn't just about ships. It's about ensuring that when conflict comes, and history tells us it always does, we are ready on day one, not day 30 or day 60 or day 90. That's where manufacturing powerhouses like Indiana come in. You're the quiet giants of America's defense industrial base. Your machine shops, foundries, and innovation hubs produce the materials and components that make our submarines silent, our ships survivable, and our sailors and Marines unstoppable. This state turns university pipelines and veteran talent into high-tech power systems and mission components at scale. Indiana isn't just America's crossroads. It's one of our key engine rooms, and nowhere is that clearer than Naval Surface Warfare Center Crane. 100 square miles, the third largest naval installation by area, and a critical strategic center for the Department of Navy. Crane drives expeditionary warfare, electronic warfare, hypersonics, and advanced sensing. It's a crown jewel for microelectronics and trusted hardware, and a crucial pillar of the Navy's leg of the nuclear triad through life cycle support of Ohio and our new Columbia-class SSBNs. But rebuilding isn't just about machines. It's about people. And the Department of the Navy needs partners like all of you, industry leaders, educators, and state and local officials who help us build the next generation of shipwrights, welders, machinists, and engineers. We must restore pride in skilled labor, kind of pride that built victory ships in record time and submarines that still patrol today. Every apprenticeship we sponsor, every trade program we expand, Every high school student we inspire adds one more link to America's chain of readiness. We need your help to restore the idea that working in the trades is not just honorable, it's indispensable. Because when we talk about national security, we're really talking about economic security, industrial security, and the dignity of work. Every job that supports the Navy strengthens America and protects our national security. So my message to you is simple. I need you. I need your innovation, your production, your resolve. Because rebuilding America's Navy is not a Navy project. It's a national imperative. Together, we will prove that the might of our fleet is built on the might of our people, that freedom of the seas depends on the freedom to build. And when America decides to lead, no rival on earth can match our ingenuity or will. We are rebuilding a Navy worthy of the sailors and Marines who serve under its flag. We're rebuilding America's Navy ship by ship, yard by yard, state by state. And when the next generation of sailors and Marines set sail under our flag, they'll do so knowing that the might of the American industry stands behind them. Thank you. May God bless all of you. May God bless the great state of Indiana. And may God bless the United States of America and the Navy and Marine Corps that defend her. Thanks.
Well, word gets around in a small, small town. They said he was a dangerous man, but Mama was proud and she stood her ground.
Very good. Thank you for those remarks. I especially appreciate that line. I'm going to steal it from you. Indiana's the quiet giant of defense industry. That's what this event is all about, to bring our defense industry together with leaders like you and talk about how we can grow it and build upon it. And wanted to have a quick conversation with you. And I think, David, we're going to open it up for maybe a couple of questions in the room as well when we're done. Is that the plan? Yes. It strikes me, as you've come all the way to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and as I've gotten to know you, and I don't want to embarrass you, but you've been enormously successful in business, and now you're providing this incredible public service to the Navy. And as I'm sitting on the Armed Services Committee and going through the confirmation process for you and a lot of the new leaders at the Pentagon, I recognize, and I think everyone in the room recognizes, how unconventional President Trump's picks have been to shake up the Pentagon. I wonder if you could talk for a moment about that, your unique business background and what that means to shaking up bureaucracy and doing what we need to do to make the Navy stronger, better, bigger, and how does that business background apply to that?
Well, thank you for having me, and thanks for the question. I think, very early on, I said, I think in maybe my second or third speech, I said, we're in the business of warfare. And it created some kind of, some people thought, this business guy. It is what we do. We are in the business of warfare. And I often ask in my meetings when we're going through things about, sir, it'll take us 6 years to design this, 10 years to build it. It'll take us 3 years to design this missile and 3 years to make it. What would we do if we were at war? And they're like, well, we would cut that in half and we would do things much faster. Why aren't we doing that? Like, that is our business. Why is our attitude not that because we are at war in our own way and we need to understand it. And so I think, what I have found in the Navy, which is great, is we have an incredible amount of talent in the Navy and the Marine Corps. And we have really top talent that is mired in 20th century processes. And they want to change and they want to get better. And I think bringing a businessman's perspective and looking at things a little bit differently, I think for them, hopefully, has been refreshing. And I found that they really embrace the way I look at it. I constantly kind of challenge them when we're looking at, there's one ship that I'm looking at right now in a class that is basically 80% of the cost of another ship and 60% of its capability. So if you were in business, you would kill that ship and just build the other ones. And I think when you start to frame things that way and look at things that way, they begin to say, yes, that's the right way to look at it. So I think it's been a big advantage, to be honest, coming from a business background and looking at the processes and studying them and trying to figure out how to adopt more modern practices. You know, I've now visited, I think I'm up to 12 U.S. shipyards and 4 foreign shipyards. And when I tell you we are stuck in 1980s manufacturing in these yards, even in some of our missile manufacturing plants that I've visited, it's astounding to me that we have not updated. And I think that, you know, we've unfortunately created behaviors and incentives that don't make sense. And I think with a businessman, you can question those and say, why are we doing this? Why does it make sense? So I don't try to focus on who's to blame or where's the problem. I just focus on how do we fix this? How do we change this? How do we, you know, if everyone beats up all the big primes, and I get it, but they behave the way they do because we created the incentives for them to behave that way. And it's the same thing with the Navy. And so we just need to change the incentive structures. And I think that's the perspective I get to bring.
You have the perfect background to do that. And President Trump he has that attitude, right? I mean, we have to fix it. It's not working. And I like, when I sat down with you and did our initial interview in my office after you were nominated by the president, I liked your story. Maybe you could share it with everybody about how intensely focused President Trump is on shipbuilding. He was hammering you and beating you up about it even before you were confirmed in office. And can you talk about that? Why President Trump gets this, he understands this. How focused is he on shipbuilding?
Yeah, I can't overstate the president's engagement. He is very, you know, when I was nominated and not confirmed, a couple of different times, you know, he sent over pictures of rusted U.S. ships in ports. He sent pictures of other ships and that looked better than ours, and is like, you know, I remember he called me one time. I think it was literally like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. He goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, you know, sir, reading the Wall Street Journal." And he started laughing. He goes, "Were you sleeping?" I go, "Yeah, I was." But he goes, "Well, can you talk?" I go, "Absolutely." And he goes, "I really don't like this rusted ships. What are you doing about it?" And I said, "You know, sir, I'm not confirmed yet." And so there's not much I can do about it. He goes, "Really?" I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay, well, we need to fix that. We need to get on that, and we need to get ships done." He goes, you know, he understands that to be a superpower, you need to be a sea power. And that's just a fact. And so he is very focused on this and us basically maintaining our competitive edge. He does not like the fact that we have given up making things in this country, and he's right. And I think we really have hollowed out our ability to make things. And I think, you know, one of the things that I'm trying to do, and one of the things in the Navy, I think everybody loves to talk about Silicon Valley and VC and technology and bringing all this new stuff in. That's great, but I need people who make things, not coders. And I really do believe that the next 10 years, people who make things are going to be the really indispensable skill that we need. And it's already happening in front of us. Look how difficult computer science majors are getting jobs. It's because AI codes faster, and it will. So, but AI can't fix your air conditioning. AI can't make a aircraft carrier. AI can't bend steel. These are all things that we're going to need, and these are jobs that are highly skilled, and candidly, the president has focused on this. We need to get wages up to a more requisite level where they deserve to be for these highly skilled trades, and that's something we're very focused on.
I like how you put that in your speech, and it takes technology and the people to get it done. And one thing we did in the Big Beautiful Bill that you were a big part of was to invest money in AI, in shipbuilding. We have Shyam Sankar from Palantir here, and we're going to talk about this a little bit in a moment too, but can you talk about how important that is, what that looks like, and what this investment from the Big Beautiful Bill will do to marry those two, technology and the people, to get it done?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple things the One Big Beautiful Bill did. So it gave us, I believe it's 13 different combat ships, and then there's the add-on from OMB, which is another 50 ships. So hopefully we'll get that, which will really help kickstart the maritime industrial base building we need to do. But there's also a significant amount of money for unmanned or uncrewed, what do you want to call it, and also for shipyard optimization investment. So actual investment in our infrastructure, in our dry docks. You know, we are piloting a Palantir system in 2 of our public yards as we speak. I saw this system at Hyundai and in Korea. Very impressive system. Saw it at Hanwha as well. And I think it'll help speed up some of the things we're doing. I mean, you know, just the way we even lay out our factory is crazy. Like for workers to have to go to the bathroom, it was a different building, it was a mile away. We were losing all of these kinds of efficiencies that normally you would see. Like if you go into an Amazon plant or SpaceX, laid out very, very differently. You know, I think we need to bring in technology because the complexity of our manufacturing is something to be seen. I've told people if you're lucky enough to go in and see a nuclear ballistic submarine being manufactured, it is like nothing I have ever seen. It makes SpaceX look like a walk in the park because it's an underwater space station in effect, and it is incredibly complicated. And so we need technology to track this, to make things better, to make things, you know, we use across the fleet a bunch of different components, and we could have standardization across the fleet in many ways, and we don't do that. And so these are things that we're implementing slowly but surely and trying to put into our practices. And I think technology can be a huge help to that.
One of the important things that Secretary of War Hegseth talked about was fixing the recruitment crisis. Yeah. And as you know, the last 4 years under President Biden and some of the characters that he had around him running the Pentagon, we had the worst recruitment crisis in the over 50 years of an all-volunteer force in this country. And I have a lot of theories about why that was the case. And I think politics had a lot to do with it. But can you talk about what you have done historically to fix that? I mean, now the Navy has far exceeded your recruitment and retention goals, and that happened, it seemed to have happened overnight. In fact, it did happen overnight on Election Day when we elected a president and a commander-in-chief who inspired a younger generation to want to raise their right hand and serve their country like I did and so many people in this room. And as a side note to that, it did occur to me over the 4 years as I focused on this on the House Armed Services Committee that in spite of the Army, Air Force, and Navy falling so far behind on recruitment, the Marines were steady. What did the Marines have figured out over those 4 years that maybe the Navy lost, and how did you fix it?
So I think for the Marines, the great thing about them is they stay very true to their ethos, right? They stay, you know, the few, the proud, the Marines. You know, all of us can say it, all of us know it. They really stay very attached to what their mission is. They're constantly evolving, and honestly, it's something we're gonna do in the Navy as well. The Marines put some of their best up-and-coming generals into recruiting. So human capital recruitment is extremely important to them. The other services don't really do, the Navy doesn't do that, the other services don't. And so for you to move up in the Marines, you have to be a very good recruiter. And the people you're recruiting and the talent you have is a mark of your leadership. And so I think that's a really smart way to look at things, to be honest. And so I think for the Marines, they didn't really change. They didn't really get involved in the things that I think impacted recruiting. You know, for us in the Navy, we were over 40,000 people. We were 3 months ahead. And I think that's really attributable to President Trump. And I think, candidly, it's attributable to the fact that he doesn't apologize for America. You know, we got into this apologetic sense of, you know, service is not a great thing, or, you know, we don't do these things, or, yeah, you should look at other things. And I think it turned a lot of people off, to be honest. And I think we started to see the numbers candidly start to climb when Biden turned it over to Kamala. I think people then kind of realized probably he's gonna win, and the numbers just started slowly accelerating up. And I think people saw that this was a man who cared about them, who cared about America, who cared about the mission, and they said, I want to be a part of that. And I think that's why our recruitment has gone up so much. And you see it in the pride in young recruits. You know, I go to the Naval Academy. I was at the Air Force game, who we beat, and hopefully we're going to beat Army in December, and it should be a good thing for sure. And so, you know, you can see the pride, and even at recruiting stations, people are really excited about joining, and I think that's a great thing.
I think, Secretary, you're going to go down in history as one of the best secretaries of the Navy that we've ever had, and a lot of it's going to be because of that. What you've done to restore the Navy back to what it's supposed to be about, shipbuilding and all of it. I want to turn this over to questions in the audience, so I don't know where the microphones are, but while they're searching for someone with a good question, what do you think of Fort Wayne? You stayed downtown, this is a great city. We have a great region. My dad, we talked about your dad, was a doctor. My dad worked in a hot, sweaty factory for 30 years in Fort Wayne, Indiana, made axles. And we have a lot of defense industry businesses who are represented here, but it's those men and women like my dad who did the hard work and do the hard work that make things in our region, that make this region great. But I hope you enjoyed Fort Wayne. I did.
It was a great time. We had a great dinner last night. That restaurant was excellent. Hotel, the Bradley was very nice. I enjoyed it. I love coming to the Midwest.
Did you buy your wife a Vera Bradley bag?
I've not bought her a Vera Bradley bag, but I will keep that in mind and stop by before I leave, because I'll probably get yelled at for not doing that.
Thank you for being here. I'm Joy Pullman with The Federalist. First, I'd like to ask you just how specifically you plan to work on especially recruiting the dockyard workers needed for all of these new development of ships. And related to that, can you give an update on the Secretary of War's reinstatement of service members in the Navy who were booted over the COVID shot mandate? How many have been officially reinstated to date? How many are waiting that? And what is your team doing to ensure that partisan bureaucrats are not stonewalling that process? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So, look, we have a thing called SIOP, which is the Shipyard Investment Optimization Plan, which is a way to get wages back up. And I think this is really an issue of wages, to be honest, when I look at it across states. You know, it is when you have workers who make the same money at Buc-ee's or at Amazon versus being in a welding outfit all day in very tight corners, it's hard to get that person to want to do that job. So we are going to have to adjust wages to be competitive, and that is what we're focused on. And we did that to some extent in our recent contracts on the submarines in Groton and Quonset, and I think we need to figure out how to do that across. I think also, to be honest, look, I'm going to spend some time with the unions, because one of the surprising things I found, so whenever I go to a shipyard, I spend, you know, a good hour with the workers as well. And one of the things at 3 of the 4 shipyards I got was, hey, we'd like to do other things, but we're kind of stuck. You know, a pipe fitter can only work on a specific aspect and can't do other things. And I said, well, guys, you're talking to the wrong guy. You got to go talk to your unions, but I will help you try to do that. But the desire for the workers to be able to do more also exists. And so I think we got to try to get a little more flexible in work rules and accommodate that with wages. So I think that there's some of that, you know, the private and public shipyards are going to have to try to navigate. But that, to me, is the real issue that we need to do, and we need to update what they have. And you know, look, I think there's also, we need to get the actual businesses building the ship to invest some of their own capital. You know, I had one CEO of one shipyard complain to me that he had a 109-year-old building, and what was I going to do about it? And my response was, why is that my problem? You have billions of dollars of contracts, and you want me to build you a building too? What am I going to get in return? And so, you know, we have conditioned things in a bad way, and that's, you know, that that company can act that way because they're one of the few builders that can build this. We need to get competition also into the arena. And so I think that will be a very important aspect. As to your COVID questions, I don't have the specific numbers in my head, but we have been moving out on that pretty quickly. I think we are pretty far ahead of most of the other services as it relates to that. I have a current acting ASN in Manpower who is specifically working on that. And candidly, I've also put the Undersecretary of the Navy to focus on this and to get this done and out there as fast as possible so we get that remedied. And I believe we've moved out on that and continue to move out on that. From what I last saw, we have gotten that process down from taking 6 months to somewhere between 1 and 2 months to get resolved. But I can have someone follow up with you to give you specific numbers.
Question in the back. Who's next? It's a long ways back there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Tony Kennett, Daily Signal and Hoosier Native. Just a quick question on China's rapid advancement in drone measures. The Navy has its work cut out for it, as does the Air Force, in developing rapid countermeasures for those. Also with the reports that China is deploying a lot of their potential suicide drone systems on those little coral reef points they call islands to expand their coastline. Does the administration, I know you earlier mentioned the undersecretary in respect to technological advancement, how much is the Navy focusing on deploying drone countermeasures on new ship builds and in our installations?
Yeah, so, we, across the Navy, we had over 70 programs doing research, of which probably close to half were doing the same thing. And that is why we centralized the process. That's why I took one of our outstanding admirals, Admiral Seiko Okano, who's a 1-star, and brought her up to a 3-star to basically stand up this new group, to basically consolidate, organize our unmanned efforts and make sure we were testing in real time and adapting in real time. And we are trying out multiple programs right now, particularly in the Indo-Pacific, both defense, ISR, offense, across the board. Making sure this integrates in with the systems will be one of the key facts that we need to get our arms around, because you can have all these systems, but if they can't communicate with one another, you're gonna have a problem. So these are things that we are focusing on, and we thought by centralizing it, it would allow us to move quicker and faster. And I think one of the things that I'll be talking to the senator about and to the guys on the Hill is we cannot programmatically fund our unmanned efforts. If we do, then we will be building obsolete things. The speed of iteration in unmanned is incredible, and it is happening very fast. So just to give you an example, in the Ukraine, if I had bought what they were using 6 months ago, it is 5 generations behind. So we can't programmatically fund this and say, this is it, this is what we're gonna build. We have to build adaptability and iteration inside to that procurement cycle. And that's something that they did in the One Big Beautiful Bill, which we greatly appreciate, which allows us to get that sort of iteration. And hopefully we'll continue to do that. But it is a key point. I think unmanned has changed the nature of warfare. But also, look, you have to realize in the Indo-Pacific, you've got the tyranny of distance. Drones traveling very far with ordnance, that's a big challenge. And so understand that how they're used and how you defend against them is gonna be a very big deal, but that integration will be the key to victory in my mind.
Our countdown clock is in the negative, so I've got to cut this off. But before I do, I want to thank you again for your incredible commitment to Crane. Crane is so important to Indiana. I know Phil Smith and the guy, we have a lot of guys here who are from Crane, leadership at Crane, and you have taken more of an interest in Crane than any Secretary of the Navy in the 9 years that I've been in Washington, D.C., and I appreciate that very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking the Secretary of the Navy for coming to Fort Wayne today and being a part of this event.